And there we are. Welcome to the Food Show. It's Andrew Coppolino here. I'm really glad you're here today, and I'm excited to be here today because we have got some excellent guests in the studio with us. But just before we get to them, I want to talk a little bit about an Iron Chef style competition. It'll take place at the Preston Town Market. That's their version of the popular TV show. We'll have a few interesting questions to ask what's going on there when we speak with someone from the Preston Town Market a little later in the hour. We're going to get rolling right away, though, because we've got lots of stuff on the table. If you're interested, literally that is too, as I might say, there's stuff on the table for you to look at because you can look at 570news.com and find the webcast button. Click on that and you're going to see what's happening right here, right now with inside of our studio, how we all look, and get an idea of what goes on in a radio station studio. Kind of an interesting little angle that we're offering to you if you're not just listening on the radio. Now, in the studio, we're going to have a little taste of beer, maybe not literally, but we're going to have a little taste of beer from one of the very best-known brewing companies in Canada, and I'm very pleased, obviously, to be able to say that it's part of the heritage of brewing in Waterloo, and that is the Brick Brewing Company. And the gentleman that's here with me is the Director of Marketing, Sean Dennis. Welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Well, you know, it's always been something, I guess, that I've sort of grown up with. It must be a couple decades that you've been located in uptown Waterloo, and it's a growing company, and it's a company that offers a really nice element to the food and beverage sort of fabric that's in our region.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Brick Brewing Company's been a part of this community since 1984, so 27th year, I guess, and very much today's sort of groundswell with regards to wine versus food and beer pairing with food as well.
That's growing, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so, very much so.
And the nice thing, the thing about Brick is that it's in the same vicinity of a lot of other pre-existing breweries. That is, there's the big name bottlers were here at one point, but there was also the smaller family brewery, the Kunz Brewery. I can't remember some of the other names that were here, but it's the same kind of a tradition that's being carried on, small, more craft-oriented brewing that you've got going, and it's just great that you're part of the region that I think, again, it just enriches the whole sort of food culture that we have going on in Waterloo region. So good to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
And my other guest is, well, she just told me she's often referred to. Sorry, I don't know what happened. Something just exploded in these. Are we okay there? Something just exploded in these headphones, and I think I can hear. We have a lady by the name of Yvonne Tremblay. Now, she just told me just before we went on air that she was she's often referred to as the Jelly Queen. It's Yvonne Tremblay. Hi.
Hi. Actually, that's a kind of a family moniker that I ended up getting picked up with, but because I entered the Royal Winter Fair a number of times and have won Grand Champion, so they kind of call me the Queen of Jellies. So.
Well, let's take this right off the back of your book. It's 250 home preserving favorites from Robert Rose Books. Yvonne Tremblay is a 4-time winner of the Grand Champion Jelly and Jam Maker, right?
Right, and actually I did win last fall again, so it's 5.
Wow, yeah. She's a professional recipe developer.
I have to go with a black pen on all the books now. Change it.
She's a professional recipe developer, a food stylist, and a cooking instructor. This is her 4th or 5th book now?
It's the 4th book.
Fourth book. And her recipes and articles have appeared in numerous books and magazines, so you can take a look at the cover of the book. Now, one of the things we're going to be doing is giving away, later in the show, we're going to be giving away 2 copies of this. We'll have you call in, and if you're the lucky winner, we'll get this book to you. And you can learn all about jams and jellies, marmalades, and chutneys. And I hope during the course of our conversation, Yvonne, that we'll actually find out what some of the subtle differences are, and maybe we'll find out a little bit about what a lager and an ale is versus what a jam and a jelly is, and just sort of shave some of the finer points of preserving and canning.
Great.
How is this season shaping up? My impression is that we've got some really, really hot weather here. I know that the peaches have been great.
Yes.
I've seen some great Ontario cherries. A lot of local produce is starting in the fruit
It's supposed
scene.
to be a fantastic year, especially for peaches. And next week is when the Freestone peaches come out, and I can't wait for that because those are the best ones to can with.
I think you're
whether
right
you're canning
about that,
peaches
yeah.
or making jam, because you can get that pit out of there, and
all
also
the fruit off
peel
of it.
comes off because normally when you can them, you have to take the peel off the peaches.
I've been impressed with the Clingstones, though. Have you? Have you had?
I haven't eaten any as yet. I was away last week, but they're supposed to be very sweet and delicious and abundant crop. But of course, it's one of those things. It's when it's ripe. You got to go for it and
devour them.
Hopefully, capture some of it in a jar.
I've been eating 3 or 4 a day easily. And the Clingstones I found really, really good this year. They're nice and juicy, flavorful, great color to them, great texture. And I would just note that one of the best sources for some great peaches could be Hurley's Market here in in Waterloo, I guess St. Agatha. And I've just learned that the Red Havens will be available starting this week, and they would probably be the Freestone, I think. So if you want some, then you can go to Hurley's Market and get them right there. Food events. I've been at several food events this summer. It's always a busy year. We just had a great Blues Fest. I don't know whether you were involved with that.
Yep.
Sean Dennis,
Yes.
Great event, and that was just amazing how much activity we had there, and the traffic of people and the food and the music was just a wonderful summer for events.
Yeah, there were several events, I guess, just in part of Uptown.
Mm-hmm.
I guess just recently, mid-July, we had Rib Fest come through town, and we were down as part of that as well with the Ontario Craft Brewers.
It's just such a great time of the year for all these events. I was at one in Toronto called the Conscious Food Festival, and I think as I'm talking about this, on our web site, 570news.com, and punching the webcast button, you'll be able to see some photos that our technical director in the bowels of the building, Greg Bowen, is bringing up of me. I took some photos of various food that I got there. It was great to see Simple Fish and Chips guy, Sean Hartwell from Stratford, and he had a great fish taco there that he was serving. I also had a beautiful smoked beef brisket in like a tortilla shell with a salsa on it, and you could just get the lime and the cilantro and some of the hot sauce that was on top of that. I had a chicken salad with black bean sauce on a little baguette slice from an organic grower that was local. Just some great stuff. This was an interesting one, a beet salad, but chickpeas that had been treated with the beet, so they were red chickpeas. And a nice blue corn tortilla chip. So they have Mapleton ice cream was there as well. They're kind of local, I think, in the Arthur area, or maybe is it near Fergus? I'm not sure, but I think it's a local Waterloo sort of area ice cream guy, and they just do some great products there. Just a really fun day, and the weather was beautiful. There just seems so much energy created around events during the summer with all this great food that we can get our hands on, and of course that's what we're interested here in the food show. So I don't know if you've been to festivals or.
I've been to the Conscious Food Festival, not this year, but I don't think you mentioned it's at Fort York. And what a great location for it, because you're basically downtown Toronto, but you're in this old historic fort. And, of course, it's coming up of the 200-year anniversary
of 1812.
Where we got the good side of the lake kind of thing. Kev got to keep the good side of the lake. But it's really neat because when you're there, you go back in history, and there is a little bit of history, just to touch on something. There's an event in the winter. It's called Mad for Marmalade that they have there. And jam was one of the things that the soldiers got as part of their rations. So anyway, it's kind of neat.
Yeah. Well, I'm speaking with Yvonne Tremblay, the Jelly Queen and author of 250 home-preserving favorites from Robert Rose Books, as well as a number of other books, and as well Sean Dennis joins me from Waterloo's very own Brick Brewing Company. Now, Sean, maybe you're familiar with this because you're based here in Waterloo. Yvonne, you're from Mississauga way?
I live in Mississauga, yes.
We have this little restaurant now called Frat Burger. I don't know if you've been there. It's the new burger joint right across from Laurier Athletic Center on University Avenue.
Yeah, no, I haven't been.
Yeah, it's a great little shop. It's sort of, I guess, a retro kind of place because they got old Pabst Blue Ribbon, neon beer signs, and they grind the meat 3-4 times a day and prepare their burgers by hand, and then they grill them on a flat top and add all kinds of great ingredients. You can get, your basic dill pickles, lettuce, onion, and tomatoes, but they also have caramelized onions, sautéed mushrooms, roasted red peppers. You can put an egg on it, a fried egg on it, cheddar, Gruyere, and great poutine too. So kind of a neat shop, just giving them a little call out there. It sort of breaks the pattern, I guess, of the traditional hamburger joint where, sort of they bung out millions just across the nation like we're all very familiar with. This is a little bit more artisanal, I guess, and hand-cut fries. So a really good little addition, I guess, to the food scene here in the region, and that's called Frat Burger, and it's located just across from Laurier University. Always try to sort of connect people with some great new restaurants. I don't know if you're much of a backyard griller. I would imagine as a beer guy, Sean, you're probably a backyard griller.
Absolutely, yeah. I've probably spent my fair share of time at the barbecue for sure.
The more I cook meat on the barbecue, I find that a burger is actually better on a flat top. And you're a chef, Yvonne. You probably realize too that if you can sear that outside,
get nice browning,
and both sides, and then let the inside get just a little bit pink. Not too red, obviously, but just a little bit pink. I think that makes the ideal burger, and that's what they try for at Frat Burger too. And I'm not doing an ad for them. I'm just pointing out when you used to go to restaurants in the States, they used to offer whether you wanted your hamburger done rare or not, and they stopped doing that recently. So it's good because when I cook a burger, I like to have a little bit of pink running through the middle, just if you're careful about your sources and whatnot. But they'll offer that to you too at this place. So it's kind of neat to be able to get that.
It's personal preference, but I was going to say the fact that they grind their own meat is great
Yeah.
because really it's about the flavor of it and maybe what other ingredients that they're putting into it to make it taste good.
Yeah, I think it's pretty basic from what I understand. They're not putting a lot of filler and stuff in it.
Yeah.
So it's just good to see these kinds of things. And this is something that I've noticed over, the 10 years or so is this sort of evolution in food locally, that we're looking at local produce, we're looking at more care in the kinds of things that we're cooking. And the sort of the care that of creating a dynamic restaurant environment, and that's what we try to talk a little bit about things here on the Food Show. You know what we're going to do? I think let's go for a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk specifically with Sean Dennis about Brick beer. I'm Andrew Coppolino. This is the Food Show. When we come back, we'll talk the Brick.
On 570 News.
And welcome back. There we are once again, the Food Show. Andrew Coppolino here. Go to 570news.com, click on the webcast button, and you can see what we look like. I'm waving to you right now. What we look like over the internet. I have with me in studio, of course, Yvonne Tremblay, the Jelly Queen. She's going to be talking to us about jams, jellies, preserving, canning. Great stuff that you can do at this time of the year with, I think, just a modicum of necessary technique. It's not that hard to do, but you do have to follow a few simple steps.
And once you learn for one, that's the way you do it for all of them, pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's just getting that one sort of method down and being comfortable with that. And the next thing you know, you got years supplies worth of jelly and jam. I can never keep them though. I make
Mine
jam.
never lasts, I tell you.
Jam and bread
Every
one
time
winter.
someone comes over, I'm down in the cellar again.
Well, we're very pleased also to have in studio with us Sean Dennis from Waterloo's very own Brick Brewing Company. So Sean, give us a little bit of the overview of the industry, brewing industry, as it sort of stands across the country right now.
Oh, across the country. Well, I mean, first we'll talk, if I could, I'll just talk a little bit about Ontario because that is our own backyard. The company very much focuses on sort of what is working and not working with regards to Ontario beer drinkers.
Right.
We certainly have stayed very close to with regards to what the industry has done as a whole, what the competitors are doing, and what we've come to quickly recognize is that there's basically really, well, there's three segments, arguably four segments that defines Ontario as beer categories. Mm-hmm. There's what we call our value segment, and then you get into what we call a mainstream segment, and then you get into what's called a premium and or craft segment, and then you get into what's called super premiums. Mm-hmm. And generally we stay we're primarily sort of playing in the value and craft / sort of premium segments of the market.
So they sort of bridge over those two segments anyway, three segments.
Yeah, sort of in the middle of that
Mm-hmm.
that mainstream brand or that mainstream category, and it's extremely competitive. The Ontario market has become extremely competitive. The big brewers are doing a very good job of putting offers out there that allow Ontario beer drinkers an opportunity to perhaps get into a different sort of pack size or different, not necessarily flavors. Mm-hmm. We as a craft brewer tend to focus a little bit more on a value segment. We have a brand, called Laker.
Maker a Laker, right?
Maker a Laker, yeah. And, not going to get into all those, as you mentioned, not getting into all the plugs and things like that. But that segment alone owns about 40% of the market. It's a very, I'm not going to say it's not competitive from a price perspective. There's really two things that you sort of focus on. You focus on what's going to be quality, what's going to be a deciding factor for the consumer when he or she gets there and decides that that's what they want to try, and the other one's price. So the value category is competitive from a price perspective, but there's not a whole heck of a lot being offered. With our brand, Laker, we've come to the table what we think is probably arguably the best beer offer in Ontario right now with a free can in case. And that gives the consumers instant redemption.
Mm-hmm.
So we focus on a lot of that in the industry. And then you get into the craft side, and the craft side is very much about our Waterloo family, our Waterloo trademark, brand like Waterloo Dark. We've had brands like Waterloo Wheat. We've now come out with what's called our Waterloo Seasonal Collection that can be found at the LCBO. And we have a brand out right now called Waterloo Rattler Mass, which is which comes originally from, it's sort of I guess the basics of what they would probably call a shandy type beer, but being the Canadians that we are, we like our beer a little stronger than what would probably be a traditional shandy type.
And keeping with sort of what's happened culturally in the city, in the region, is this sort of the German tradition. It actually comes from a German kind of invention way back when.
Yeah, that's
almost
right.
accidental, I guess. Was
Yeah, it was. Yeah, so just quickly, the story on that would be that a gentleman out there during the war had decided that he wanted to open up his own. Well, he had his own brewery, I should say. So I guess after the war, cycling became very popular, and eventually Rattler Mass became the cyclist's beer because he had cleared a series of trees to get to his meadow, and he woke up one morning with like 13,000 cyclists.
Had to feed them.
He had to give them beer. Yeah. So he actually started running out of his own beer. So he went to a lemon soda mix, which actually became Rattler Mass.
There you go.
Yeah.
What do you think is unique about Waterloo region as a beer drinking population? Is there anything unique about it? Does it have special demands that maybe are different than other parts of the province?
Yeah, I don't know if Waterloo necessarily has different demands. I mean, there's a lot of great things that go on in this community, as you mentioned, with regards to the German heritage. Oktoberfest, obviously, being very much a part of this community. But Ontario as a whole, Waterloo has a lot of really great things to offer, but probably really no different than many other communities. So when it comes to beer offers and what's available, it's just about creating a point of difference and allowing consumers to experiment and try something different.
They're very idiosyncratic, I guess, drinking the sort of the beer lovers and wine lovers, the same thing. I mean, they have sort of very individual kinds of designs on what they want, and they're probably fairly loyal to brands too. Once they get one, is it hard to shift them off and away from that, or have you had good luck with flexibility and getting people to try different things?
Yeah, I know it's funny you say that, because what the change that we are seeing is that craft beer has come around again.
Mm-hmm.
At one point, it was sort of the little brewery in that town. Everybody called them microbreweries, and eventually the big brewers kind of did a very good job. Can't knock them. They did a very good job of coming to the market with a position that was good for their brands. And now it's come around again, which is really great because, we see the statistics from the LCBO particularly, as well as the beer store. And, the changes become with regards to what they call single-serve cans, which is the 473 milliliter cans.
Right, okay.
And consumers prefer this now because it gives them an opportunity to try it without going and dropping, $30, $40, $50 on a big case of beer, getting it home and going, geez, I shouldn't have done that. But now it gives them an opportunity to try it, and then when they do try it, you have to kind of stay close to these consumers with regards to samplings and getting the product out into their hands and all that wonderful stuff. And again, price is very much a part of it.
Well, we are a food show, and we do talk about food, and we like to pair wine and food. What about pairing beer and food? I'm not asking you for specific recipes, of course, but what are your thoughts on it? And is it something that's slowly creeping into the restaurant scene? Is it something that people are thinking more and more about, finding the quality of, say, something like the Waterloo Dark or the Blonde Red Baron?
Yep.
What are some things to think about?
Well, I mean, you can get to the sort of the basics of pairing. Yeah, so I'll back up your first question with regards to, we're seeing a lot more pairing, especially at it's probably more so at a home level. I mean,
okay.
Beer drinkers are sort of, it's not just about having a beer with a burger.
Yeah.
We are talking to, especially in our own retail store, we take the time to talk to consumers when they come in and sort of ask them, what it is they're doing, why that particular brand. And we're hearing a lot of things like, it's great because we're having, spicy food tonight. So this particular brand goes very well with that. And it's kind of surprising because it's not, it's the wine food thing. And the beer food thing has definitely come along. And it brought us to why we started bringing different brands, different flavors, different flavor profiles to our particular portfolio. Low-carb brands are become more and more popular with regards to sort of consumption before and during meal. And flavored brands. So I mentioned Rattler Mass before. I mean, beer can chicken isn't anything that's new. But when you have a lemon beer, or a lemonade beer in this particular case, we've had consumers come in and say, a few consumers minimally that I've talked to that have said, absolutely fantastic with beer, doing a beer can chicken. And Waterloo Dark's another example where we've had several people. I was mentioning earlier that we have one particular caterer that we've worked with on several occasions, and he's now done a beer batter with Waterloo Dark, which creates sort of these darker colored onion rings, and they taste phenomenal. I mean, because Waterloo Dark has a different chocolate type finish on it, things like that, and it comes out in the food tremendously.
We should point out that the location, I guess, is roughly Allen Street and King Street, where your the main
where the brewery is.
The brewery is, But there's also other activities and stuff that happen there. There's a sort of corporate place where people business meetings and things like that. It's got more to it than just brewing beer, doesn't it?
Yeah,
I mean, shop.
We've got our retail store in the ground floor with the entrance on the back of the brewery, and we also have what's been known as the Red Baron Lounge.
Which may be unknown to some people.
Yeah, and it is on. Here we are. It's every Saturday we have samplings from 12 o'clock till 3 o'clock. You're allowed to come in, sample the product, right in the bar in the lounge. We also rent the room to. We've had people get married in the room.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Beer lovers, no doubt.
Yeah, and there's different events, business meetings, etc. So it's. And of course, that's our head office. We also have our distribution facility in Bingham's on Bingham Drive there.
Yeah.
That's where all of our bottling is done.
And I don't know what the line of beers are. There must be 12, at least a dozen, 15 different beers that you've got in your portfolio.
Yeah, 15 total. Yeah. We actually have a new one as part of the seasonal collection. So we'll have a new one. Rattler Mass is a brand that's sort of a spring-summer focus. And then we've got a new brand coming out for fall-winter, which is part of the Waterloo trademark as well, and it's called Waterloo Amber, and it's actually a whiskey beer.
Oh, that'll be interesting.
So it's made with whiskey malt. It's actually made with 5 different types of malt, including a whiskey malt. It's aged with white oak, and it's a little bit, as we say in our industry, a little bit higher octane. It's 6.8%. Yeah. So we're very excited to bring that out. We should probably see the LCBO shelves about sort of beginning to mid-September.
Oh, that's great. What we'll do is we'll direct people to go to brickbeer.com, and they can find out more information about the business in general, the history, and also the lines of beers. And I guess they'll look forward then to announcements being made about Waterloo Amber as it comes up and available for purchase.
Yeah, for sure.
That's Sean Dennis. He's the director of marketing at Brick Brewing Company of Waterloo. We do have to take a little break right now. When we come back, though, we're going to be jamming, I think, with Yvonne Tremblay.
Great.
You're listening to 570 News.
Find out where the best food is, from restaurant reviews to the fun of food from around the region to around the world. This is The Food Show with Andrew Coppolino on 570 News.
Welcome back. Sean Dennis and I are just joking about the mixture of scones and jam and beer. We're trying to figure out all the flavor possibilities
What
there.
beer could go?
I think beer goes wonderful with everything.
Because we're having a hoot here in the studio trying to get all ready with all kinds of goodies. Yvonne Tremblay is here. Her book is 250 Preserving Favorites, and it's published by Robert Rose Book. She is a 4-time winner and Grand Champion of Jam and Jelly Maker Award, given by one of the oldest and most prestigious agricultural fairs in North America, and we're glad to have her alongside. Well, what is all this stuff you've got here? I mean, Greg, our camera guy, is going to be picking up the stuff that you set up, but what we're talking about preserving here, there's a certain amount of equipment that's needed. Your book is obviously going to help people with that, but maybe give us a little bit of an overview, and my hands are very sticky now from this jam.
You guys go ahead and eat scones then with various jams. I brought along 5 different things for sampling, and basically you can make jam year round, but in the summer is the best time to get all that great fruit and capture it to enjoy in the winter. And if you do start with fragrant, delicious fruit, I'm always in the stores smelling the fruit, you're going to end up with really good jam.
So good quality produce to start.
Start with the good fruit, and then a little bit of the handling of the fruit. So for instance, when I do strawberry jam, I make sure that I get the core right out of the center of the strawberries, and if you pick your own, that's great. Just juicy, fragrant fruit. And some of the equipment that I have there, I do talk about in the book. So the beginning of the book is all like a primer on the things that you need. You really don't need anything too specialized, but there is stuff that you need. And I find that if I get all set up ahead of time and I'll pre-measure the sugar and, get everything ready to go, then it's just a little bit of prep of your fruit, and it can go quite fast. And that's the thing I guess I want people to know, is it doesn't have to be a whole day operation. Mm-hmm. You can actually do some of these jams. Actually, I've been known to throw a jam together at 1 o'clock in the morning, and it maybe takes about half an hour when I've had the stuff all prepped. Yeah. So some jams are a little bit more labor intensive if you have to peel and chop pears. I noticed you're eating the ginger pear with creme de cacao. That was one of the first prize.
Have you tried that, Sean?
It was a first prize winning jam at the Royal. People say, how'd you get into that? And a friend just said, you should put your jams in the Royal Winter Fair. So my very first one was one of the ones I brought there, which is a rosemary apple cider jelly. And one of my other cookbooks is a herb cookbook. So I decided to enter that. And then I ended up getting this ribbon in the mail, but I didn't know which one it was for because I had also entered a grape jelly. Anyway, that was my very first prize jelly that I continue to make.
Okay, so rosemary, an herb, and ginger, it's a root, I guess, or something, but those aren't traditionally things that we would think about going into jam. So
Not
what you're trying to do is breaking that envelope.
That's right. People have the traditional things that they make. Strawberry is probably the most popular jam because, first of all, it's a great way to capture strawberries. I mean, you can freeze strawberries, but they tend to go a little mushy or whatever, but if it's one of those things that the season is very short. So if you can, you do that, then, it's very, very popular. I also put strawberries with blueberries and raspberries. And what I did for this book, my first book actually was called Prize Winning Preserves, and it was because of entering the Royal and winning that I, first wrote that. And then when I republished last year, they said, can you put more content? And I said, how many more recipes do you want? About 120. So the book is actually 2 books. It's a complete book of prize-winning preserves plus all this new stuff, which was really great because at first I thought, oh my God, what, I did so many things. What else can I do? And but it was a great opportunity to play, and I do use herbs and other things, but to give it a little extra flavor or blending the flavors. I mean, you have to have a knack for that, but I figured it all out for you. So
let's take a look. Just hop over to our shelf over there, ledge over there, and you can sort of walk us through some of the equipment that people just stay close to the mic. So this is Yvonne Tremblay, YvonneTremblay.com, Robert Rose Books. A little bit of a sort of an overview of all the different equipment that's there and the.
So I'd like to. I put on my apron for you, and you can find these aprons. They're plastic coated, and what's great about them is when you're making jam, whether you're preparing the fruit or actually doing the cooking, you might splash on yourself. So it's really great because you just wipe it off after. So it's one of the things I recommend people get. Of course, you have different types of pectin. Not all jams are made with added pectin, but some things, like for instance wine jellies or herb jellies, they wouldn't set otherwise. Like it allows us to have those kinds of things.
Doesn't have natural pectin
because it doesn't. Some fruit, like for instance strawberries, it has pectin in it, but you have to cook it for 20-25 minutes, and then you've cooked out a lot of the flavor and the color or whatever. So in some fruits, I prefer to do a pectin added. Pectin is natural. It comes from the rind of citrus fruit. In some cases, it can come from apples, so you can boil apples and get your own pectin as well. But so when you are using it, the only thing I would say is that you have to follow instructions. Usually the powdered pectin goes in before the sugar, and then it'll tell you whether you need it to boil it for a minute or whatever. But basically, you're just doing that 1 minute boil, then it goes into the jars.
Okay, now what are the forceps for there? We're not delivering babies.
We are delivering jam. This is kind of at the end of the process. I'll just show you a few other things. Of course, you're going to do, sanitary is very important. We've got our jars. Usually you want to boil the jars to sterilize them. You're going to just heat up the lids. You used to have to boil the lids for 5 minutes, and now they're saying that you only have to heat them up to soften. But what I've got here is a magnetic jar lifter, so you can lift that out of the water, and then when you put it onto your filled jar of jam,
Keeps it
take
sanitary.
it off. But it's very easy because you're not trying to grab it with tongs or whatever. So you usually have a little pot of that boiling.
Yeah, and your fingers in hot water usually doesn't go over very
Not
well.
very
either.
good, no. And this is a canning funnel. You'll find a lot of these, for instance, some of the hardware stores carry canning equipment and pretty much year-round. So it's really not that hard to find. And the pectin probably in any grocery store. Anyway, the funnel, what that does is it helps to keep the lip of the jar clean. So that after you've filled it, and you want to fill it, usually it's within a quarter of an inch of the top.
Be pretty close
and
to
then
the top,
yeah. You put your lid on, and then you're going to put your ring on, and they say to tighten it, or we say fingertip tight, so just until it cinches up. And what happens then is it allows the air that's little airspace, headspace that's in the top to go out, and then you get your vacuum seal. So that's why when you take them out, you put them on a tea towel, you'll hear the pop, and you get the indenting. So that's how you can tell that the thing is.
And that's important for safety.
And some people weren't doing the extra boiling. It's very important because you've done all this work and you invested the fruit, your time, all the ingredients, and you want to be able to keep it for a long time. So if you do a proper boil, it's going to last you. The stuff's going to go through the winter. You're going to find that you have good seals. Some of the other equipment I have here, obviously a large canning pot. You can get racks so that you can, lift it in and out very easily. What I like to use for lifting jars out, this is
stay on the mic there.
silicone oven mitt.
Okay.
And so what it allows you to do is go in and not worry about. So it's not like a cloth one.
That's a
gonna
great
get
invention,
wet.
isn't it?
Oh, fantastic. So you can pick up hot things with that. This is like a little shark,
You
right?
can pick up your beer can chicken with that.
Hey, absolutely great. And there's another little tool here as well. It's just to measure the height of the whatever you've got in the jar. It's got little teeth for a quarter inch, half inch, and other foods that you preserve. Sometimes it's half inch headspace, but you want to make sure you have the right headspace because that allows you to get a good seal. So anyway, that's it for that stuff, and maybe we'll go back.
Okay. Yeah, headspace is important. I'm always trying to get in the right headspace.
Different kind of headspace.
When we're sort of talking about the differences of some of these things, we got ales and lagers, and we have Radler Mass, and we have Waterloo Amber. What's a preserve and what's a conserve? Is there a difference?
It can be confusing. I suppose anything that you're preserving, it could be pickles, it could be canned peaches or whatever, and jam is included as a preserve. But when you're doing jams, for instance, or the whole fruit, it could be mashed up or chopped up or whatever and then cooked. A jelly would be just the juice from the fruit.
That's been set.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, for instance, it could be you took your crab apples and you cooked the heck out of them and then you put in a jelly bag and you let it drip. Could be something like choke cherries, which are very seedy. You don't want you couldn't really eat it, so it allows you to extract that. A conserve, actually, I think of it as an upscale jam. It tends to be a little softer in texture. It could be a little chunkier. It often has dried fruit added to it. I do a beautiful one in the book is nectarine with dried cherry and dried apricot. And it often has liqueur added to it. So I don't know, if I do a third book, I might have to do some stuff with beer, I'm thinking.
I was going to ask that.
Because you were talking about chocolate and beer. I thought, that's kind of interesting. So
I was going to ask that. I don't know that I've ever, not that I'm a canning, I don't know anything about
Aficionado or whatever, yeah.
But
just know how to open them, right?
then they're delicious.
I know you're not sitting there drinking the beer thinking, "Gee, this would be really good."
Yeah, I've said the same thing.
But
it's not like you
would,
open up a beer and
no.
go, "Geez, this would go nice with a leafy salad."
It might be very interesting because you can use jellies for glazes for I don't know. Pork roast or, like you say, chicken or ribs or something like that. And the herb jelly I use that for as well, or wine jellies, obviously. Garlic jelly. I've made herb and garlic jellies.
So you've never done a beer jelly?
I didn't do a beer one, but I had a cousin who said that they tasted something like that, and it was just at a point at which I just didn't know quite what I would do with it. But now, of course, the beer and the lime and whatever, and I'm thinking this could be quite good on chicken.
I'm speaking Yvonne Tremblay of YvonneTremblay.com and Sean Dennis of Brick Brewing Company, brickbeer.com. Sean, do you think there's a market for a beer jelly?
Because
this could be a new cookbook.
Gee, maybe we should work together.
Yeah,
we'll put it in the
That's
store.
I'm here to help in any way I can. No, it's funny.
I think there would be.
I could do recipes whether or not it's jam. You can
I think there might
a lot
be.
of things.
The way I look at it is that we talked about pairing, but there certainly is a lot of cook with that's happening
Absolutely.
as well. And how many times have you either seen what's happening with barbecue sauces, the example, whether they're using whiskeys or whatever that is, or our beer ones as well. So, why not? Why
And
not?
also, because when you're making all of these, they are sweet spreads, even though you can do some low sugar, alternate sugar ones. And the bit of sweetness actually adds to the flavor. Often I might deglaze a pan with a little jam. I've made salad dressings where, like, I do a strawberry with balsamic and then do that with grilled beef in a salad. So that little bit of sweetness actually it becomes a flavor enhancer. So not only are you having the fruit or the beer or whatever that's come from, but you know when you make barbecue sauce, usually there's a little brown sugar or something in it. So you have to think of jams as and jellies and whatnot as being ingredients as well to an adjunct to cooking.
The book is 250 home preserving favorites by following a few simple steps. And these absolutely mouth-watering recipes. You can enjoy the delicious rewards of canning soft spreads at home in your kitchen. And the author is, of course, Yvonne Tremblay. Fruit butters, I noticed in here. I've taken
no butter. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I've taken butter and I've
Yeah,
chopped up herb in it and made like a compound butter.
Yes,
So what's a fruit butter?
Totally different. And that name obviously comes from way back. But what people did was typically fruit that tends to be a little, I don't know, think of like applesauce, but will be just kind of a mushy texture. So
Right.
you make butters usually from apples or things like pears, plums, and basically it's completely pureed. So it ends up being like a thick spread of like a sauce. So there's no butter in it, absolutely none. And usually in canning, I don't use butter. Sometimes
Really?
some books will say to put a little butter to prevent the foaming. I've never done that. I just skim off the foam because I don't actually want to put any in. So it's fruit butters. I also have chutneys in the book, and they're kind of fun because these days people are enjoying a little bit spicier foods as well.
Yeah.
You can make it as little spice as you want or as much spice as you want. But speaking also of spicy things, one year when I entered the fair, I did a red and a green pepper jelly. And so I went to look on the display just that day to see how did I do or whatever, and there was a jar missing in one of the categories. So I went over to the guard and I said, oh, this seems to be a jar missing. I didn't know it was mine, but I found out later that it was my pepper jelly and someone stole it. So I thought, oh, okay, and it won first prize. So I thought, oh, there you go. So if they're stealing your stuff, it must be good.
That's a good thing.
Uh-huh.
Well, I'm speaking with Yvonne Tremblay. Thank you for joining us. YvonneTremblay.com.
Thank you for having me.
250 home-preserving favorites from Robert Rose Books. We have to take just a short break. When we come back, we're going to do just a quick call-out to the Preston Town Market about their Chef Taste-Off. This is 570 News.
This is
Yeah, we only have a few minutes left for the show. We're going to try to wrap up. Martha Stewart's story, Yvonne Tremblay.
Oh, just one of the years at the Royal Winter Fair, she was the Grand Marshal, and I happened to be a judge that year, and so we were doing the best of the best, and it's kind of interesting. It was being taped for her show as well as HGTV, and as we were going along, we tasted a raspberry jam, and she said, oh, it's too seedy. They could have used less seedy raspberries, and I thought, oh, where do you get less seedy raspberries? So I didn't know what to say. I'm like, oh, yes, when, we went along. And it was very interesting because after when I saw the tapes of both shows, she had cut that out of her show, but they left it in the Canadian one. So I thought afterwards, like, maybe she thought that was like a weird thing to say. So I don't know. I'm still looking for less seedy raspberries.
Well, yeah, she went to jail anyway. So right after that, I think. Less seedy raspberries. I think that's kind of an interesting proposition. I don't know.
Perhaps she has all kinds of raspberries growing on a property or something that we don't know about.
She's trying to market them. And Sean Dennis, Canadian Food Safety.
GFSI.
Okay.
Yeah. Global Food Safety Standards.
Global.
So,
Okay.
Yeah.
You're working toward that at the Brick.
Yep.
Brewery.
Going through the final steps of it right now. Will be the first Canadian brewer to be certified. So
that's interesting.
Yeah, beers actually it's really not treated any different than sort of the food industry when it comes to sanitation and quality standards.
Of course, in ancient times and medieval England, they would drink beer because it was safe. The water wasn't. No, I'm serious. I'm not joking.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, for sure.
And they would have it for breakfast. But we should bring those days back.
We still have it for breakfast.
I still have it for breakfast. Now we're going to go off to Preston Town Market right now. We're going to be talking to Soraya Ratana Middleton. Are you there, Soraya? Have we got her on the line? Is she there? Hi, Soraya. How are you? This is Soraya Ratana Middleton. Are you there? Can we hear her?
Hello?
Hi, Soraya. It's Andrew from the Food Show. How are you?
Very good. I'm terribly sorry. I'm having quite a difficult time hearing you.
Okay, well, I'll just ask you the questions. Tell me a little bit about the Preston Town Market Chef Taste-Off, when it is, what's happening, how people can get involved.
Certainly. Preston Town Market is created quite a few events this year, kind of trying to promote, of course, healthy eating and based with the market itself. And this year we're doing one promotion called the Taste Off. And what's happening is we're inviting 4 local restaurants to essentially kind of compete against each other using farmers market ingredients. So the Preston Town Market will pretty much present them with the ingredients. They'll be preparing those dishes kind of in their stores and restaurants, and then bringing them on site.
And where's this happening?
And this is happening at Central Park in Cambridge here, right in the Preston downtown core, and it's on August 25th.
Is there a fee for admission?
Of course not. Actually, we're asking Cambridge to be the voters here. There is no fee for admission to the market itself, of course, and the event is free. What we're asking is if you do choose to be kind of a judge, you just come to the info booth and grab a vote form. And at that time, if you wish to donate, you certainly can. And
the proceeds would go to charity, would go to...
the proceeds itself would go to the Preston Town Market. We are a community market. We do operate with assistance from the City of Cambridge as well as assistance from the Waterloo region, but we're kind of a grassroots community-based market. So just kind of helping with operating fees, et cetera, and events in the future.
Can you tell us a website where people can go and get some more information about this, get the date and all the facts that they need?
Certainly. You can check out PrestonTownMarket.ca, and that'll lead you to just a bit of an info page that we have for it.
Well, that's great. Thanks for joining us. Good luck with the event, and good luck with the Preston Town Market as well.
Thank you very much, Andrew.
That's Soraya Ratana Middleton of the Preston Town Market. Great event. I think more and more if we see these celebrity chef things popping up, people sort of steal the name Iron Chef. I don't think they can do that, but we'll say they're Iron Chef style, and then we have these kind of competitions. A lot of fun.
Yeah, great positioning with regards to sort of that buy local, support local as well.
They really work. Yeah, they do. I think they combine all elements that people look for: restaurants, food and drink. Seeing a chef in action, working under time constraints, probably much like what really happens in restaurants when there's 50 orders ahead of you, and you've got to get them all out to the customers. So they're fun events, and I know that there's a couple going around on this fall as we come up to the sort of the harvest season. So there we go.
And it's fun to vote and have your say. I think people enjoy that too, that they participate.
Yeah, more and more inclusive kinds of things happening with food now. It's not just going to the grocery store and very impersonally buying, mushrooms. You can go to a farmer who grows them, learn more about them. People making their own jams and jellies. I guess people still make their own beer, but we can certainly, I think, when we have an option to buy beer that's sort of a local product, it's a great addition to the sort of the palette of flavors that we get.
Yeah, I mean, Brick Brewing Company is very much about buy local, support local. I mean, as a fourth largest brewer in Ontario, 100% Canadian, independently owned. Very much about being able to tell consumers that, and thanking consumers for buying local and supporting local.
Well, that's it for the show this week. Thanks to Soraya Ratana Middleton, Sean Dennis of Brick Brewing of Waterloo, brickbeer.com, and Yvonne Tremblay, author of 250 Preserving Favorites from Robert Rose Books, YvonneTremblay.com. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
Please visit 570 News for an archive of past shows, and you can follow The Food Show at twitter.com, 570 Food Show, and read my restaurant reviews each week in Echo Weekly, and that comes out on Thursdays. Join us next week for a visit with Food Network celebrity and song stylist Roger Mooking, local chef Scott Yates of Wildcraft Catering, and we'll have a couple other treats along the way as well. Remember, eat wisely and eat well. Thank you for joining us here at The Food Show, only on 570 News.
It's time for 60